Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, how's it going? So, yeah, it's been a while since I did any videos for the channel, and before I get into talking about what I wanted to talk about here, I wanted to give sort of a quick update. So, I have been working on a few projects for the channel, a few retrospectives, and a few other videos that people requested over live streams and comment sections and whatnot. I know that I've got a lot of stuff that's been requested over the past year or so that I just kind of completely lost interest in. Those of you who follow my other channel will know I actually lost quite a lot of data when some of my hard drives broke and whatnot. So a lot of the stuff I was working on and planning to work on kind of got cancelled for this channel and my other channel. I've been very, very inactive on both. Plus, I got my usual excuse that I've just been very busy with work and everything else and whatnot. So, yeah, but I promise you guys, over the next few weeks or so, there's going to be some retrospectives and videos of that kind coming to this channel. Because, again, I'm just in the state of mind where I want to get back on track with that. I kind of do it impulsively. If I don't feel like doing it, I won't do it. But when I get in the state of mind where I want to do it, I kind of really commit to it, and that's what I've been doing. So yeah, there's a few interesting videos coming. Today I just want to do a prediction video, just because I felt like it, if truth be told. I want to talk about the only significant fight that's coming up within the next couple of months or so, aside from the Bivol-Beterbiev fight, but I've already spoken about that fight at length, and you guys know how I feel about it. That's definitely the best fight that's on the schedule coming up. There's another fake Canelo fight, and there's a couple of other fights too, but nothing that really interests me. But in terms of the fights that's coming up soon, the one that I think will be the most entertaining, but at the same time sort of the most straightforward, will be this fight, the Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois fight, because just the very nature of this fight and who these guys are and the way that they both fight and whatnot is going to make it entertaining while it lasts. So, how do I see this fight? Now, I've been asked about it several times on live streams, and I've kind of given a quick take and summed up my thoughts on it pretty quickly, but I've been really thinking about this fight and really dissecting it, and the more I think about it, there's one particular thing about it that I can't really get out of my head in regards to this fight, and that is that when I look at these two guys, I look at the way that they fight, and I look at the attributes that they bring to the table. They're almost carbon copies of one another. They're very, very similar in terms of what they bring to the table. It's just that one guy out of the two is just a little bit better in every area. So let's talk about it. So, Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois, what are the things that these guys bring to the table? Well, first of all, they're both big guys, right? They're both very, very big, very, very strong, very, very powerful heavyweights, right? Big, tall, strong, muscular guys. Anthony Joshua is a little bit taller. Okay, Anthony Joshua has a slightly longer reach. Anthony Joshua is the physically stronger of the two. Anthony Joshua has proven his punching power at a significantly higher level. Anthony Joshua has also proven his mettle at a higher level than Daniel Dubois has. Daniel Dubois has quit at a certain level. When he fought Joe Joyce, he was mentally broken in that fight, and he just capitulated. And the same thing happened against Usyk. Now, you could make the argument that Anthony Joshua has shown a little bit of quit throughout his career, that he seemed tentative and he seemed lacking in confidence and whatnot. But when he fought Usyk, he went the distance on 2 occasions and was able to take punches without going down and was able to give it his all and make the fights, even though he lost clearly both times, he was able to make the fights somewhat competitive. He was able to stun Usyk, he was able to land shots here and there, was able to back him up in the second fight, was able to hurt him to the body and whatnot. Daniel Dubois had no success against Usyk whatsoever, didn't win a single round, didn't hurt Usyk one time by legitimate means. I know he hurt him with a pretty egregious low blow, of which he landed about 20 low blows throughout the fight, but aside from that, he didn't do anything to Usyk. He couldn't deal with the in and out movement. He couldn't deal with the lead hand control. He couldn't deal with the hand speed, the pivots, the foot positioning and all that good stuff. He couldn't deal with it. Couldn't deal with the southpaw stance. Couldn't deal with the jab. Couldn't deal with the straight left. Couldn't deal with the body punches. It was like a situation where he just got completely overwhelmed and completely swarmed. So you saw a major difference there between how Anthony Joshua conducted himself in both Usyk fights, where he gave a really good account of himself in spite of losing on both occasions. Daniel Dubois really went out like a bitch, if truth be told. He really didn't give a good account of himself in that fight. And, you could chop it up to a lack of experience, but at the same time, it's not the only time that Daniel Dubois' heart and will to win has come into question, because like I said, he quit previously against Joe Joyce. And, Joe Joyce, as talented as he is, he's never shown himself to be like a master tactician or anything like that. And he was able to completely school and dominate Daniel Dubois behind a jab. And it was essentially the jab that forced Daniel Dubois to quit. He just got tired of taking it, took a knee and quit. And he was, of course, contemplating quitting against Kevin Lerena, who, in my personal opinion, went on to take a dive. Daniel Dubois wanted out in that fight. So, whereas you could say that Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois have similar attributes in terms of what they bring to the table, you could also say that they have similar flaws, but Anthony Joshua has been able to deal with them flaws, I would say, with a lot of grace. He's been able to go out on his shield in fights and really give it his all. Like in that second Usyk fight, he gave it his all. That was as close to a, real dedicated performance as you'll ever see from a guy who's just completely overmatched. He really, really gave a good account of himself in that one and finished the fight very strongly. But it ultimately wasn't enough because Usyk was just leagues above him in terms of technical skill and stamina and whatnot. So I definitely think that going into this fight, Anthony Joshua has a psychological advantage in that sense. You also couple that with the fact that Joshua's taller, the fact that he's proven his power at a much higher level than Dubois has. I mean, some people seem to be under the impression that Dubois is the bigger puncher of the two. I've heard sparring partners and people along those lines insinuate that. But to be perfectly honest, you have to look at the resume and who the power has affected. And Anthony Joshua was able to knock out the likes of Alexander Povetkin. He was able to stop Vladimir Klitschko. Faded elite fighters. Definitely much higher level than anybody that Daniel Dubois has been able to stop. So I just think that it's logical to assume that Anthony Joshua hits a lot harder, or at least hits harder to some degree. And I think Anthony Joshua, with having the superior resume of the two, with him having come back from defeats to win in pretty impressive fashion. In his last couple of fights, he's looked pretty good against pretty low-level opposition, but he's looked, at least he's come back well from his losses. And I just think it doesn't bode well for Daniel Dubois going into this fight, because for me, Daniel Dubois hasn't really proven that he's learned anything from his two defeats, because going into the Jarrell Miller fight, I mean, that fight was just a foregone conclusion. Jarrell Miller was as perfect a hand-picked opponent as you could possibly get for someone like Dubois, someone with size and power. He was really tailor-made for him. And as for Hrgović, he was a guy who went into the fight with a notable lack of ambition, a guy who hadn't really developed, in my opinion, as a pro, and who basically bitched out. And Daniel Dubois had to rely on illegal tactics consistently to win that fight, and to win both fights, actually. There was plenty of low blows against Miller, but, against Hrgović, for sure, without the headbutts, Daniel Dubois wouldn't have got a look in. He wouldn't have had any chance of winning that fight, in my opinion. So I just think going into this fight, Daniel Dubois doesn't really have anything more than a puncher's chance. And, Anthony Joshua, like I've said several times already, he's shown his vulnerabilities, but he's also shown the ability to fight through the pain, to fight through the stress, and to really give a good account of himself. And I just think that if he's in a position in this fight where he's hurt or he's dropped or he's struggling or, he's unsure of himself, he has the experience at this point in time to know what to do and to know how to make adjustments. Whereas if Daniel Dubois is taking right hands flush on the chin consistently against AJ, like he did against Hrgovic, he's gonna capitulate, in my opinion. So I'm going with Anthony Joshua to win this fight by knockout in the mid to late rounds. I just think he's going to break Dubois down, and I think he's going to impose his size on him. And I think it will be cagey early on. Both guys are pretty well established long-range boxers who like to fight behind a jab. But Dubois doesn't really have much head movement. In fact, he barely moves his head at all in fights. If you look at the Hrgovic fight, he was a sitting target for that overhand right. And Hrgovic doesn't have anywhere near the kind of power in his right hand that Anthony Joshua does. So, I'm fairly confident that this is a knockout victory for Anthony Joshua. But I think that just based on the very nature of this fight, like I said near the start of the video, it's going to be entertaining while it lasts. Two big guys, two big punchers, both shown their vulnerabilities in the past, both shown that they can hurt the other. Both have sparred. There's a bit of history there. It's a good fight. It's an entertaining fight, and I look forward to it. I'm actually, the more I think about it, although I have a pretty clear idea of how it should go in my mind, I'm still looking forward to watching it. So let me know what you guys think anyway. Stay tuned for more content. Thanks for watching. God bless.